What's going on YouTube? Clover Buzz here, back with another Scarlet Violet video, and today we're going to be looking at the Oceania International Championships and just recapping some results and key takeaways, and so this way we can make some predictions moving forward as we head into Knoxville and some other future online tours, right? Or even like the in-person stuff. So we've already released a video earlier today where we talked about the Klefki from the second place team from Alberto. Again, it's a really cool team. It's our favorite team of the top 8. Just because it's an archetype that we have tried already on the channel, right? We built a team and created a rental code for Roaring Moon, Corviknight, and Volcarona. I really like that trio behind the screens. So instead of the Klefki slot, we had Grimmsnarl, but Klefki is just overall better. And then instead of the double dragon with the Garchomp there, I believe we just had the Amoonguss. So that was the idea there. And we've already showcased that team on the channel, but Klefki is just super cool, right? I think it just makes a lot of sense on this kind of team and in Series 2 in general, just because it just doesn't die to the Flutter Mane, it doesn't die to Sylveon, and you're still able to put pressure right back into Great Tusk, Iron Hands, and even like the Roaring Moon. So I think that makes a lot of sense and merits a slot to try and set up prankster screens there. So we've already talked about that, and if you want to look into it more, just watch our video from earlier today about Klefki. But then overall, look at this top 8. Oh my goodness. So 3 Roaring Moons and 3 Dragonites. So that's one thing to take note of. And there's a back Scarlet right there. So definitely Dragons are reigning supreme here. And look, we even have a Garchomp and a Hydreigon. So, this was a top cut of Dragons, if you would kind of phrase it that way. Also noteworthy is the fact that there's a couple of Great Tusk teams, but no Talonflame Great Tusk, right? There is a Talonflame team here from Chupa, who by the way has no Paradox Pokemon. But in terms of like Great Tusk with Talonflame, the whole idea was like Tailwind support, and then you're just able to Earthquake next to a flying type. So the Dragonite here on Colin's team has Tailwind, right? And also over here on Alfredo's team, the Hydreigon also has Tailwind, and because of Levitate, you can also Earthquake next to it. So similar concept there. You're just having a Pokemon that can dish out more offense and have more bulk, whereas Talonflame can just click Tailwind, and then it's kind of frail and doesn't really do that much damage. So the idea of using a Tailwind user like a Hydreigon or a Dragonite, or even like a Terraflying Tailwind Roaring Moon, just makes a lot more sense, right? In terms of having like a more viable, stronger offensive option. Okay, and then from there, look at this. So you had 3 of those Dragonites and 3 of those Roaring Moons. You also have another 3 of something, and that's 3 Maushold teams within the top cut. And we're going to talk more about Maushold at another timestamp in the video, but yeah, man, Maushold is making a pretty strong return in Series 2, and it never really left. It's just like even stronger right now, just given the fact of where the meta is right now, and again, we're going to talk about why that is. But again, it is also important to note, what kind of sets these Mausholds are running, because some of them are very different depending on what kind of playstyle that they want to go for, right? But again, 3 Mausholds there. There's a rain team, of course, from the winning team from Gavin Michaels. And if we just take a look at that for a second, just in terms of what he's trying to do here, because this is like the premier rain team going on right now. Gavin's really, really good at using rain. He's been, great for a very, very long time. And, this is something that's been consistent for him. So basically you have a pretty standard rain core with like the Palafin Pelipper along with the Amoonguss. And I always say that if you want to build a rain team, right, of course you're going to have these 3 with the Palafin, Pelipper, and Amoonguss. I think that's a solid core, but you always need the Iron Hands on a team like this, right? Because otherwise the Amoonguss, the Pelipper, and the Palafin, they just kind of drop to the Iron Bundle, and you need a way to effectively deal with the Iron Bundle, and I think Iron Hands is that answer for that reason, right? And just being able to also like Volt Switch out and then just get Palafin back in with 0 to hero on turn 1 just is so powerful. It's just like instant offense, right? Because what you can do is lead Iron Hands and Palafin, just switch out the Palafin for like Pelipper, and then just Volt Switch out back into Palafin, and then now you just have Palafin and Pelipper on the next turn. You're just able to deal a whole bunch of damage because now you're having 0 to hero in the rain, and you can just go for Tailwind next turn potentially, right? So that's a really, really good combination here. Then the back Scalper with Terra Poison is actually really, really cool, because first of all, you don't really take super effective damage from the fighting type attacks, so that's an answer there. And then just another way to deal with like the grass coverage, or the toxic spikes for that matter. And you know, you are susceptible for like, you know, Great Tusk Earth ground type attacks, but then like you're almost daring them to do that because, you know, you have ice type moves. So if they really want to stay in and take that, you know, they're more than welcome to do so. But then you're just going to take a whole bunch of damage here from the back Scarlet barrier. And also noteworthy that it's Dragon Fang, so you're going to do a whole bunch of damage with your Glaive Rush. And it's not like, you know, loaded dice Icicle Spear. It's actually just Icicle Crash, which you know, makes me nervous a little bit, right, because of the accuracy chance. But that's okay, right? You still have Ice Shard for, you know, priority moves. So back Scalper is really good, you know, into a lot of the other dragons, like a Roaring Moon, for example, and some other flying types in general. But it's also really good into, you know, Great Tusk. So it just makes a lot of sense. I do like it a lot on this kind of team, you know. And the Dragonite, of course, you know, we know what Dragonite can do, and we're going to talk about Dragonite a lot more in not only in a timestamp in this video, but also a separate video in general, because like Dragonite has been popping off, you know, as of late in Series 2, and for good reason. But here is a pretty standard set with Extreme Speed, Terra Blast, and Ice Spinner. I think Ice Spinner is like a mainstay on a Dragonite set. It just has so much good coverage, you know, just to have that ice type attack is really, really beneficial for it. And then multi-scale rather than inner focus. So this will probably allow you to live, you know, maybe a freeze drive from an Iron Bundle, which would otherwise be 4 times super effective, or even like 2 times super effective. Just the fact that you can live one big super effective attack, I think is important for something like Dragonite, right? And then of course, you know, just the extreme speed damage is really, really nice. And you know, but the Lumber, you can't really burn it or sleep it, at least for 1 turn. So that's the benefit there. And you know, this is just Citrus Berry Among Us, very, very standard set here. But you know, overall cool team from Gavin. Congratulations to him. And you know, now what we're gonna do is take a look at the rest of this, you know, tournament, because we have a lot to say, a lot of things that we've noticed in certain, you know, in terms of like trends and results, and hopefully we can cover some of the major things. So this way you get your information as far as like what you could expect, not only in Knoxville, but like in, you know, tournaments that will take place after this. All right, so let's take a look. All right, the first thing I want to talk about with this tournament is the rise of Roaring Moon, but specifically a certain type of Roaring Moon set, and that is the Dragon Dance set. So if you take a look at, you know, the top cut, or even like, you know, teams that didn't top cut but still got CP, a lot of the Roaring Moons have Dragon Dance now. And this slot used to be like Tailwind, you know, it's just so that, you know, you have some extra speed control. But nowadays, you're kind of seeing it fall off a little bit and going for the Dragon Dance instead. And the reasoning for this is because, you know, Roaring Moon, you know, if you go for Dragon Dance, you're going to probably run it as an Adamant Natured Roaring Moon, and then you just get your speed from Dragon Dance instead. And it's really, really important, you know, to get that extra huge damage boost from like, you know, the Booster Energy Dragon Dance set, because Arcanite comes in, it gives you Intimidate, and you know, you're -1, and then you just don't do any damage anymore, right? But if you have Dragon Dance, you can kind of mitigate that a little bit and still keep your attack boost from the Booster Energy, but then you get your speed increase anyway. So now your Roaring Moon's now starting to do some extra damage, right? And as proof of my statement, if we take a look at some of the tournament teams here, let's look at Alberto's team here. So this was the Volcarona Corviknight set, and again, with Alberto, yeah, see, there's a Dragon Dance set with Acrobatics Throat Chop. And then if we keep going down the list here, I believe Raghav had, you know, Tailwind. Let me just take a look at this one. Nope, it is also Dragon Dance there. So 2 Roaring Moons with Dragon Dance. Thomas, were you the lone Tailwind user, I believe? I think you were. Yeah, all right, so this one had Tailwind but Breaking Swipe. That's okay. But if we keep going down this list here, from Sam Pendelis, let's take a look at his Roaring Moon set here with the Garganical stuff. And then Iron Hands, Iron Bundle. Yep, see, it's Dragon Dance here again. And then if I were to just keep going and just take a look at some other like Roaring Moon sets here, like even this one here, I believe it's the same kind of team, right? Yeah, man, this is just Dragon Dance. So like you could tell, you know, with just all these Roaring Moon sets, Dragon Dance is a more preferred option right now, just because of the, you know, you could potentially sweep teams, you know, once you get that attack boost along with your Booster Energy, then you can just kind of like sweep from here. And you know, a very standard sample EV spread that I can give you that you can try and use is this. You can go Adamant 164, which is the second benchmark in the attack stat. And again, if you don't know what a benchmark or an EV benchmark is in general, just comment in the video section. I'll tell you what it is. But basically, it's a point where this attack stat is going up by 2 points instead of 1. So Adamant 164 is that trademark number here. Then you can just go for 84 speed, which can just outspeed Timigo Dengos. And then from here, you can just invest in your bulk for 84 investment over here as well. This will optimize against Tyranitar Sandchip damage. and then just 1 point in special defense. Your special defense is already really good, and then the rest of this can just go into defense, just because your Roaring Moon natural defense of 71 is just not so great, but it's not like awful. But again, you want to invest in it just so that you can stay on the field and deal a bunch of damage. And it just so happens that this spread, if I put it in the damage calculator, will survive a 252 adamant Iron Hands Drain Punch, right? You see that? You can live it, okay, which is very important because then you can get off another potential attack next turn. So for those of you that want a pretty cool Roaring Moon EV spread, if you want Adamant Nature, Dragon Dance, this is the set to go with. So hopefully it just benefits you, right? But again, with the rise of like Gothitelle stuff, and even like Indeedee Armarouge teams, Roaring Moon just makes sense that it's seeing a rise in usage, within these big regionals, and it just makes a lot of sense, right? Goldango is another thing that you want to kind of like put pressure on, and Roaring Moon can do just that. And then you just consider like other things that could be weak to Roaring Moon, and just deals with that, right? And this is why some of those Trick Room teams are starting to run like Hatterene stuff. So like look at this, like from Michael over here, Thomas Dowling, and just like the list goes on. But you can see like Hatterene is within a good amount within this tournament, right? So we'll talk more about Hatterene in a bit, but like, yeah, man, Roaring Moon, it's really, really good right now. And again, it's all about that Dragon Dance set right now. So hopefully, moving into Knoxville, I think we'll see a lot more of it. But yeah, let's move on to the next topic here. Okay, the other thing I also started to notice within the tournament is the appearance of Mausholds, and the role that Mausholds is supposed to play on certain teams. And the set that most people are running is this with Safety Goggles, Terra Ghost. This is just to avoid, the fighting type damage, something like a close combat from a Great Tusk, or even like a Drain Punch from an Iron Hand. Safety Goggles, so this way you can ignore the Amoonguss. And then over here, some tech move besides, Follow Me, Super Fang, and Protect. You're going to see something like this with Baby Doll Eyes, which can drop attack. So it's almost like, like an Arcanine Intimidate if you don't have an Arcanine. Or you might see something like Taunt, or something like, instead of Taunt, you might see Encore, which are very, very similar in what they're supposed to do, and just to like, shut down some certain setup moves, or just make sure that they get neutered. But, depending on the set, you might even have like Beat Up, okay? If you're paired with Annihilate, so this way you can boost up Raging Fist damage. But it really all depends on the team. But the idea is this: there's no population bomb on these Maushold teams. It's all about adding Friend Guard to make your entire team super bulky and ruin those damage calcs, live to tell the tale, and then just deal damage right back, okay? And if we take a look at some of those tournament teams, we can kind of see that. So let's look at some of these. Let's look at Rogov's teams first. This is the highest ranked Maushold team. And I really like this kind of Maushold team, where it's just like Maushold plus like the good stuff, with Roaring Moon, Iron Hands, and Iron Bundle, and then like the Arcanine for support. And here's even a Goldango here. So the idea is this with, see, there's the Baby Doll Eyes tech. You're just able to deal chip damage with Super Fang, and then, neuter attack with Baby Doll Eyes. There's also an Arcanine here as well. And then just have like Iron Hands, Iron Bundle, Roaring Moon, and Goldango sweep from the back end, or just rely on, your bulk. These things can survive and just keep dealing damage, right? And then you also have the Follow Me redirection. Teams like this, you might even see like the Amoonguss instead of the Maushold. But Rogov said, no, I don't want the Amoonguss. I don't want the Spore Pressure. Instead, I want the chip damage from Super Fang. I want the Friend Guard bulk, okay? And, I also want the Baby Doll Eyes tech, right? So there's the idea there. So I really like this kind of team, where it's just like super balanced. If you look at Colin's team, it's, with the Great Tusk here, with, Tailwind instead of the Talonflame. But more or less the same idea. Super Fang, Follow Me, Helping Hand, Protect. So there's a Helping Hand tech here. A little bit more extra damage. Again, Amoonguss can't give you this, right? You can't get Friend Guard. You can't get Helping Hand. And the chip damage is important with, with the Super Fang. So, this is one idea of like why Maushold might be a little bit more preferred than the Amoonguss in certain cases. But it really all depends on the team and what you want to accomplish, right? But that's the idea there. All right, if I keep going down this list, Thomas's team is actually really cool. I think I almost like this one the most out of all of them. Again, you have the Roaring Moon and then the Iron Bundle. There's another Arcanine, of course, but now because you're paired with the Annihilate, now you have to run Beat Up, right? Which makes a lot of sense, of course, right? So you're trying to boost up your Annihilate damage here, and then just rely on the Tailwind support and just be like super fast and deal a bunch of damage, right? So that's the idea here with this Maushold. I think it's really cool. And then if I go down to this Maushold from Aurelian, okay, Aurelian. All right, hopefully I don't butcher that name completely, but from this kind of team. Again, you know, with Great Tusk, Goldango, and no Tailwind user. You would figure like Dragonite or Volcarona would give you Tailwind support, but it's not here. Again, Baby Doll Eyes and Super Fang. Again, just adding bulk to everything. Like, this entire team is bulky. Dragonite, bulk. Iron Bundle, bulk. Tusk is bulk. Goldango, bulky. Volcarona, bulky. And then you add, you know, Frangard over here, and then you can just rely on your potential setups, like Nasty Plot or even Quiver Dance, and then just sweep behind those setups, right? So there's the idea there. Okay, it makes a lot of sense. All right, Mausholds are really good at setting up Pokemon. So, you know, if you need to do a setup, I definitely recommend Maushold. Here's Pengy's team, Stefan Mott, of course. Let's take a look at what he's running here. I'm pretty sure, yep, see, there's the Annihilate, which means there's the beat up over here with the Friend Guard and the safety goggles. The good stuff, Goldango, Talonflame, and Roaring Moon. We love this, and of course, there's a Great Tusk. You know, I love this trio with Talonflame, Goldango, and Great Tusk. And then you just snap on Maushold and Annihilate here, and then Roaring Moon just for like, you know, mitigation, right? This is a damage mitigation Roaring Moon. Look at this. There's no Arcanine here. So he says, this is going to be my dark version of the Arcanine. I'm going to go with Snarl. I'm going to go with Breaking Swipe. I'm going to give speed control to my entire team. And I'm going to be on the field and do that all over again and be annoying because I'm going to go for Roost. And Terra Fairy is really nice, you know, because this is really good also into like Dondozo stuff. Because, you know, they can't really click order up into you, and then you can just Breaking Swipe it, and, you know, you just neuter their attack, right? So I really like this supportive Roaring Moon set because all the damage is coming from, you know, Great Tusk, Annihilate, and Goldango anyway. So let's just be more supportive and help out the Maushold here and just use Roaring Moon here. So I really like that option there for Roaring Moon from Stefan. So really nice. But if we keep going down here, just a couple more here. Francesco, okay, the last Maushold here within like the top 32. And finally, we have our first Population Bomb Maushold, and I saw it right away because I saw that it was Wide Lens, which means, you know, you're going to run Population Bomb. So this is going to be your nuker Maushold. But interesting enough, there is Shadow Claw over here with the Terra-type Ghost. I guess it makes a lot of sense here. Might as well throw in a Ghost-type stab just to do a little bit more extra damage and snipe those Goldangos if you can. But again, you know, depending on how you want to play the Maushold, that will affect your moveset. So this is meant to be a more offensive Maushold with the Population Bomb, right? But again, as we go into Knoxville, I definitely think Maushold teams plus like Paradox Pokemon are really, really strong because you're able to set them up and you're able to do a bunch of damage. And then the Friend Guard just makes them super bulky, right? And, you know, just like Maushold, Iron Hands, for example, like, you know, you just Friend Guard with like Swords Dance. And it can just do so much damage. And then the Friend Guard is just making everything so bulky. Iron Hands is bulky enough as it is. We don't need that thing to have any more bulk, okay? So definitely consider doing some Maushold stuff to your team. Because I think it's super effective, and you know you're just going to see it even more within the upcoming tours. All right, so let's take a look at the next topic. Okay, the next thing that I also noticed is once again Dondozo is still up there. It's still consistent. It's never going away. Ladies and gentlemen, I get these questions all the time. Will Dondozo ever drop out of the meta? The answer is no. Okay, as long as you have as dominant of a Pokemon as this, along with Tatsugiri, it's going to be consistent. It's going to be running around. Now, the one thing that can change is if we get the Ruination Pokemon. And I think stuff like Chanpao and Chi-Yu can definitely put pressure on Dondozo, and especially like other stuff. But until then, whether it's Series 1 or Series 2, Dondozo is finding a way to thrive. And there's a couple of ways that people have been finding a way to do it. So you always have this core, of course, with Dondozo, Tatsugiri. Then you just have like Talonflame, Hyper Offense in the back with something like either Goldango, or then you have like even the Great Tusk. Okay, but some kind of hyper offense with like a Tailwind user like Talonflame, right? That's one way to play this, play a Dondozo kind of team in Series 2. Or you can go with like Flutter Mane in the back along with Iron Moth and then 2 fillers, right? So what the idea here is with Iron Moth, you just go with Acid Spray, and then, you know, you just drop special defenses, and then the Flutter Mane can just pick up KOs, you know, after those special defense drops, right? And then you have 2 balanced fillers, right? Whether it's like something for speed control, maybe Arcanine to neuter Pokemon, with, you know, Intimidate, Snarl stuff. Either way, I think these are the 2 best ways to try and run a Dondozo kind of team. So if we take a look at some of the tournament cuts with Dondozo, I think we'll see just that. So here's Yuya's team. And again, pretty much the same idea what he was going for. So it's Dondozo, Tatsugiri with, of course, Iron Moth and the Flutter Mane. And then you have your 2 fillers with Arcanine and Dragonite. Makes a lot of sense here. Choice Band Dragonite with multi-skill. Extreme speed again just does so much damage, so of course you have that, and then you just snipe KOs, and then just Dondozo Tatsugiri just cleans up in the back. Makes a lot of sense. Okay, if we just go for other teams, let's look at Chupa's team. Again, no paradox over here, just a straight up Dondozo Series 1 team. And again, here it is with Talonflame in the back for hyper offense. Then you just have like Palmon, Arcanine, Goldengo. So Talonflame, Goldengo. Interesting enough, it's not Murkrow, but again, Talonflame also makes a lot of sense here. And then you can just revive whatever you have with the Palmon here. So that's also one kind of way to run it. Here's Chongjun's team. And I think it's more or less the same kind of team, right? Yeah, Chongjun's team, pretty much it. The same team. Okay, so we don't really need to discuss that. I mean, same kind of concept. Talonflame, hyper offense in the back engine. Here's Yuki's team. Okay, and again, you can also see the same thing. Here is Dondozo Tatsugiri, Talonflame, Goldengo, Maushold, Glimora. Okay, so again, noticing that a lot of these teams, you don't really need Paradox Pokemon. You can still do well without it because like Dondozo is just so oppressive. So don't be too fearful to not try and use Paradox Pokemon. It really all depends on the type of team that you're trying to run. All right, so I believe that was all the Dondozo teams within the top cut. So now let's look at some others that still got CP but didn't quite get there. So let's look at 33rd to 64th place. So James Beck over here. So this one has the Fluttermane in the back along with Goldengo. And there's a Life Form Meowscarada, which is actually very interesting. So this is another way to run it. Okay, if I just scroll down the list a little bit more, yeah, this is another one. Like we said, like Talonflame offense with Goldengo, Great Tusk, and just another hyper offensive card. But you get the idea. So this is pretty much the dominant way to try and run Dondozo. You just have like a well balanced core in the back. Usually with a Talonflame hyper offense, and then you just another engine to try and use it besides relying on simply Dondozo here. Like this one, instead of Talonflame, this is like Murkrow, right? So it's Murkrow, Goldengo, so this way you can wipe away those special attack reductions. And then it's Maushold, Annihilate, right? Another good duo here. So, Dondozo's not going away, okay? And I believe you're still going to see more or less the same way. In Knoxville, you're still going to see, 4, 5, 6 Dondozo teams within the top cut. It's just very consistent. It's a good pairing. Just all those Omni boosts are insane, and you just have to respect it when you do your team building, right? You got to have some Clear Smog users, you got to have some Haze users. Either way, it's still around to stay for a while. All right, let's look at the next thing. Okay, so the next thing I also wanted to talk about was Gothitelle and Fluttermane, the Perish Trap combination. And remember in the Orlando Regionals, that was the Gothitelle tournament. There was just so much Gothitelle running around, so much Perish Trap running around, and Perish Trap even won it. That you just have to like kind of respect it, going into this regional. And we kind of saw it here. So basically the standard set here is Dazzling Gleam, Shadow Ball, Parasong, Protect, or it doesn't even have to be Dazzling Gleam, could be even Moonblast. Gothitelle, standard set with like a Fake Out, a stat move like Psychic, and then Protect, and then some filler move like Trick Room, for example. You could always fill in some other slot here like Heal Pulse or maybe even like Helping Hand, but Trick Room in certain games was like useful. And if we take a look here, there actually wasn't even a Gothitelle in like the top 8 or even like the top 16, but there was still Gothitelle in the bottom part of the cut, right? So if we take a look here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 Gothitelle within the top 32, but more specifically the bottom part of the top 32. Okay, so let's look at Fred Zoe's team here with the Gothitelle Fluttermane stuff. Again, anytime you see Gothitelle Fluttermane, you can almost assume that it's like Perish Trap. Yeah, see, this is it, like Psychic, Taunt, Fake Out, Protect. So instead of like Trick Room, you had Taunt here, so some filler move. Then you had like your Fairy, Ghost move, Parasong, and a Protect. I like this kind of team a lot just because like our Iron Hands and Amoonguss are like mainstays on teams like this. So you might as well just add that here. Iron Hands, Amoonguss, they just do really well, especially if Trick Room is up. And then they're very good bulky Pokemon, especially the Amoonguss where you're constantly like pivoting it in and out, especially with Parasong stuff. I think it just makes a lot of sense. And then here are your like 2 fillers. Usually something like Palafin and Arcanine, for example, or something else. Here it was Arcanine, Dragonite. Makes a lot of sense. You can snipe potential teams. I like this kind of team a lot if I had to use Perish Trap. If you look at Nick Navarsian, which is super cool because it uses Gyarados, Life Orb Gyarados, which we actually did make for a rental team. So that's kind of cool. But basically, again, you have the Amoonguss, and instead of the Iron Hands, it's King Gambit, but kind of like the same kind of concept here. But again, there's Parasong there, and this time there is Psychic, okay? And this is Goggles instead of like, a recovery move. But again, this is probably also to just get around Amoonguss, if you do try to go for Trick Room. But same kind of concept here. just trapping things. If I keep going down the list here, Megan Rattle's team, there's the Arcanine Amoonguss Iron Bundle core, and then there's the Dragonite. Again, a very common Perish Trap team, this kind of core. And you could even swap in one of these options for like Palafin, for example. But it just makes a lot of sense here. This one is Drain Punch Swords Dance set because you have the Amoonguss. No Trick Room here, but you still have Perish Song here. So that's the idea. All right. If I go to these last two teams, Alex Donaldson. So there's finally the Palafin. And again, it's Arcanine Amoonguss, Iron Hands. And then there's the Palafin instead of a Dragonite. And again, you can do either or. It just depends on how you want to do it. And then there's Haze on this Palafin. You know, that's just probably for like Dondozo stuff. But you can just kind of mess with Dondozo with Perish Song anyway. So, you know, ideally, it's still pretty good. Depending on how you want to try and play the Perish Trap. And then finally, was Marco's team Perish? Actually, I don't think it was. I think it was like a bluff, right? Was this Perish? No, it wasn't, right? It was just Psychic, Fake Out, Taunt, and Thunder Wave. And then this one is an offensive Flutter Mane, which we're going to talk about in a second. But this is kind of cool, right? You have Great Tusk, you know, Talonflame, and then Tyranitar. Of course, the Iron Bundle here. But then you have Flutter Mane, Gothitelle, and you already, like, were thinking, like, maybe Perish Trap, but it's not. So that's something that's very interesting there. But, yeah, man, the Perish Song formula is pretty evident here. You just have something like Arcanine, and, you know, you either have something like a Palafin, which is really, really cool, or you can have something like the Dragonite. And again, you just have something that's a super consistent option here. But I like it a lot if you had to try and run Perish Trap. But again, it's just something that you're going to see moving forward into Knoxville for sure. It's going to be respected. This is why stuff like, you know, Roaring Moon is kind of needed here a little bit. Just like kill this Gothitelle so this way you can actually swap. All right. But, you know, the Arcanine Intimidate support just kind of makes that hard along with the Flutter Mane, right? So there's the idea there. But again, just be prepared for Perish Trap. And, you know, you did see it here a little bit. Again, very interesting love. None in the top 16, but still within the cut because, you know, you're in the bottom part of the cut. But even then, these guys, some of them were also seen, you know, that still got CP here that didn't quite make the cut. Like even here. Was James Perish Trap actually? I don't think it was. I think it was just like a straight up Gothitelle, just no Perish Trap here, right? I think this is the same team. Oops, I closed it. Let me bring it back here. Was this Perish from James? No, it was just Trick Room, right? Because you have a Tyranitar and a slow Sylveon, for example. What else was there? Was there another Gothitelle here? I don't. Here's another one. But was this Perish? Is my question. No, you usually want that in the Flutter Mane. This is Trick Room again. So, you know, no luck there. No dice. And that was pretty much it. Yeah, actually, all right. So most of the Perish teams were already in the cut, and you know, even though Gothitelle was used and was seen. Again, no Flutter Mane Perish to go along with it in some of those other teams. But at least you had 5 of them. So, yeah. Oh, no, 4 of the 5, right? So, yeah, just be aware of that moving forward. But, yeah, I still think it's a pretty decent archetype to try and prepare for. All right, let's keep going. Okay, the other thing I want to talk about is the Trick Room cores, specifically these Indeedee Armarouge cores, because you'll see like a couple of them in top cut, but there's also a lot of them not in the cut. So, if we take a look here within the tournament, starting from the top. So basically, you run through and there's not any of them. Okay, there's nothing in the top 8 with Indeedee Armarouge. Actually, no, that's not true. We have here with Alfredo's team. So basically, the idea here is, you know, with Indeedee Psychic Seas, you have the Terra Fairy with Dazzling Gleam just for like the dark coverage here. Then you have something like Helping Hand and then Trick Room on the Indeedee. New Armarouge can also have Trick Room, but ideally you want like Life Orb or Safety Goggles support here with like Terra Grass, so this way you don't get stuck by Amoonguss. Then you just have like Expanding Force, Armor, Cannon, your 2 stat moves, then Protect. Now, if you don't want Trick Room here and you have Trick Room on the Indeedee, then you can just go for like another filler move here, like Energy Ball or maybe even like Wide Guard. But if we take a look at something like Alfredo's team, you know, where there's like a balance. And I think like that's the best way to try and use Indeedee Armarouge teams, where you just have like this balance and not just go completely hard Trick Room, because you know, sometimes that limits your options a little bit, but something like this will give you a little bit more flexibility. So there's Tailwind here from a Dragon, you know, and then there's a strong Fairy type option like a Flutter Mane, and then you have the Bundle, and then you have the Great Tusk, right? So 3 Paradox Pokemon. I think this makes a lot of sense. I don't know if I would use Hydreigon here. I probably maybe just use like Roaring Moon, for example, but I'm sure there's a reason for it. But either way, a balanced team like this is actually very, very strong. So then if you just go down the list here, how many other Indeedee Armarouge teams do you actually see, right? Because the hard Trick Room teams can kind of struggle, but the balanced ones can do relatively well. So here's Matthew Robinson. This one's actually more of a hard Trick Room team. So this is a very classic example. So you have both kinds of Trick Room teams in the top cut, where again you have Indeedee Armarouge here, and then because you have the Hatterene, you kind of have to give the Hatterene the Life Orb. This is good against like the Roaring Moon stuff. Then you just have like Amoonguss, Iron Hands, and then Kingambit actually just comes in here and just does the job here. So this is like a hard Trick Room core. So if you prefer to play it that way, okay, sure. All right. Then if you go down past the top 32 and then into the 33rd to 64th, again, more CP. But here's another one from Michael Navis, who just bubbled out, right? More or less the same concept with Indeedee and then the Kingambit. But here you have the Torkoal and the Brute Bonnet. So another hard Trick Room team, within, getting CP results. So relatively nice option there. Then look at this with Vivek, where you have Iron Jugulis. Does this have Tailwind? All right, it does have Tailwind. So instead of, the Hydreigon, you have the Iron Jugulis providing Tailwind support and, boost your energy, Earth Power, Dark Pulse. Then you have the Arcanine and then the Iron Hand. So that's another interesting thing. And here's the Life Orb, Terra Grass, Armarouge that we've been talking about. But if you keep going, there was a lot of these actually that did relatively well that just didn't quite make the top. Again, here's from Kiroshi. This one's with the Screamtail. But again, there's a Trick Room on the Mimikyu, and then there's a Torkoal with Life Orb, Brute Bonnet. Oh my god, this guy's on another planet over here. And then there's the Iron Hands and Amoonguss, of course. Makes a lot of sense here. Liu Genting, so another one. Indeedee Armarouge with Torkoal. And then there's the Fluttermane Maushold stuff. So adding bulk to your team. And then there's a Corviknight here with, no Tailwind, but just Brave Bird, Iron Head, Body Press. Okay, that's very interesting. All right, then you just go over here. Jessica over here with, again, another, this one, again, a balanced kind of team, right? You have Roaring Moon, you have Fluttermane, and then your Trick Room core of Indeedee Armarouge with Amoonguss and the Iron Hands, right? So Tailwind from the Roaring Moon, and I would imagine that this, this Armarouge just has a little bit of speed where you can just outspeed everything after a potential Tailwind, and then you have the flexibility for Trick Room. There is the Belly Drum from the Iron Hands. I like that a lot. If you're going to run Iron Hands, Belly Drum or Swords Dance Sense, I definitely recommend it on a Trick Room team with Indeedee Follow Me support, because then, just can't fake it out. And then, of course, here's the Fluttermane. So I actually like these kinds of Trick Room teams where you just have some balance, right? So you have, Roaring Moon, something like the Iron Bundle, a strong Fairy type, like either a Fluttermane can do the job for you, just another strong special attacker. I actually like Sylveon in this kind of slot. Just a little bit more bulkier. I know it's slower, but that means, it's a little bit more advantageous in Trick Room than the Fluttermane. But if you like the Fluttermane, you can definitely put that here. And then over here, just something like Iron Hands, or even like or even just like a Kingambit. I'll just put in Iron Hands over here. But something balanced like this, where like the Roaring Moon has Tailwind. Okay, this way the bundle and the Sylveon can both benefit it, along with your Armarouge and Roaring Moon. You can even also consider Dragon Dance here, because you have an Indeedee here. But I think with the setup potential here, you can just go like Swords Dance or even like Belly Drum on the Iron Hands. And I think it just makes a lot of sense here with like maybe a Citrus Berry support. Then you can just go like Terra Fire, so then this way they can't burn you. But ideally, this is what I would do, right? Some kind of balance where like you have Indeedee Armarouge Trick Room core, but then you have, the Roaring Moon Tailwind support, where like these other options are just like super fast under Tailwind, right? I don't want to do like hard Trick Room team, because that kind of limits my options. I'm not very flexible with what I want to do, even though those teams are still very, very good. I'd rather have a team like this where I just have like multiple options in a best of 3 tournament. All right, and you'll probably see that going into Knoxville, but you'll probably see both, where you have like Indeedee Armarouge with the Hatterene hard Trick Room stuff, or you see something like this where you have like Indeedee Armarouge and then the balanced stuff with Tailwind. All right, let's keep going. Okay, the last thing that I want to end here with was the Dragonite usage here, and this is something that I could expect to see even more so moving forward. So like there was 2 dominant Dragonite sets here, with the exception of like the Choice Band set that you saw like 1 or 2 of those running around. But basically it was either like a Lumberry set or an Assault Vest set. And with the Lumberry set, you're going to run Protect, you're going to have Terra Flying, but the 3 consistent moves from both sets is you had Extreme Speed, Terra Blast, which is Terra Flying, and then Ice Spinner, which is great coverage. Really, really good into like the Great Tusk kind of thing, or even like the Terra Flying Roaring Moon stuff. But ideally, this one you're going for more bulk because you have the Assault Vest, so you don't just drop immediately to like a freeze dry from an Iron Bundle or like a Flutter Mane Choice Specs Moonblast. You do have the option to Terra Flying, in exchange for that, so that you don't take super effective damage. But multi-scale is actually really good ability where you can at least take one of those moves. So a shout, and you're trading it off, right? Because if you had Inner Focus, you don't get faked out, you don't get intimidated. But then you're just saying, it's okay. I'm Dragonite. I have base 134 attack, even a little bit of Intimidate, where I don't do as much damage, but again, I can just deal priority extreme speed damage, Terra Blast, Ice Spinner. So like you're giving that up, right, with the Intimidate stuff, running around. But at the very least, you're adding more bulk to what you have, right? And if we take a look at the regionals, not the regionals, the Oceania Internationals, how many Dragonites are in the top 32? There were 7 Dragonites in the top 32. That is almost as many Roaring Moons that you saw in the top 5. That is amazing. And what kind of Dragonite teams were running around? So let's look at Colin's team here, like top 5 over here. So basically, it was Dragonite with a Maushold here, and this was a Lumberry set. This one had Tailwind, which I like a lot because that makes your entire team faster. It supports the entire team. Multi-scale, so you're able to take an attack, and you couple that with Friend Guard, and Dragonite just kind of sits there and just keeps clicking extreme speed. Then you have like Great Tusk and Iron Bundle and some strong Fairy type. Basically, the Great Tusk can just go for Earthquake because you're a flying type, and then the Iron Bundle over here can just go for speed control with Icy Wind. The Flutter Mane can also benefit from that, and booster energy is really good here. And then the King Gambit, just to like clean things up in the back, also has Terra Flying, so you can also Earthquake next to this as well. So it makes a lot of sense here. Okay, then if you go down into Aurelian's team, I just want to say, hopefully I'm saying that right, but where is that? Right here. So Aurelian's team, right? Again, similar concept to Colin, where you had the Maushold, you had the bundle over here and the Great Tusk, but then you have Volcarona and Goldengo. So with Maushold over here, you're able to set up Nasty Plot, you're able to set up Quiver Dance, makes a lot of sense. And then Dragonite with the Assault Vest is just able to come in and deal a bunch of damage, and your 4th move of choice here is like Dragon Claw. Dragon Stab, really good against Roaring Moon, of course. And if Dondozo wants to Terra Dragon, then you can just deal super effective right back. And with the Friend Guard, you're able to just redirect everything it goes for. And noticingly enough, this is an inner focus Dragonite rather than a multi-scale. But again, that's okay. You're just going for like more damage here. You're not able to get intimidated. But what I really want to do is just dedicate like an entire video, like noticing the rise of Dragonite on a lot of these regional teams, this international championship, and some of the online tournaments, and just like really identify why it's like doing so good. I mean, on paper you can kind of see why it's doing so good. Like if you just look at its stats and the move coverage it gets, you can kind of understand why. But I think we gotta pay homage to the OG Gen 1 Dragon one more time, in another video showcase. So we'll be on the look for that one. But that's really all I gotta say about this OCIC. Again, hopefully we made note of a couple of things. Again, it was all about those Roaring Moon teams with Dragon Dance, the Maushold stuff that you can see running around. Talonflame Hyper Offense is still okay. Great Tusk, even without Talonflame, is still pretty good. The Heart Trick teams are still running around, but again, the balanced ones are still pretty good. The Flutter Manes actually are also a little bit more offensive because if you notice, some of them have either Booster Energy or Life Orb, and they can be actually quite bulky. So just take note of that. I think you might see a little bit more of those moving forward. But, again, of course, Dondozo's still around. You still got Gothitelle, Perish Trap. I think those are mainstays, and just something that you have to prepare for. But overall, a really cool tour, and nice to see some interesting tech options, like again the second place team with Klefki over here. So we'll see what kind of tech options we get in the next regional. That's it for now, folks. And again, if you want coaching where we go through a team building process, where we go through the EV spreads, show you how to do them, just building a solid, consistent team in terms of composition, whether you need it for like a ladder play, an online tour, or an upcoming regional, check the video description below. It's a tier 3 sub to the channel where you can just click the link and join it. And once you do, message me on Discord and we'll get things going. Or if you already have a squad and just need me to hash it out and just fix it up a little bit, that's a tier 2 sub to the channel. So just take note of that. But yeah, either way, click the link in the video description or in the comment section, or click the join button. We'll be back with another video in the next one, guys. Peace out and have a good one.